situation. Always trust your gut.
Hello, my name is Krista Champagne. You are listening to Residue, a true crime podcast dedicated to keeping you paranoid. Residue is not just another true crime podcast, but a necessary tool for those who want to understand the dangers lurking in the real world. You are listening to episode 64, The Murder of Krista Pike. Love, it's something that we all crave, something we all dream about. But what happens when affection turns into obsession and friendship becomes betrayal? In today's episode, we are diving deep into a love triangle that went terribly wrong.
I miss her laugh, her smile, her marshmallow cheeks, and most of all, her hugs.
Brittany Navarra grew up in a small, blue-collar town where everyone knew everyone else's business. A small, central California community called Madera. In Madera, if you weren't part of the crowd, you felt isolated. Brittany's childhood wasn't easy. Her dad was barely around, and her mom was battling cancer. For a lot of her life, Brittany felt alone. She was the quiet girl, the one who kept to herself, desperate for validation, and always searching for love, affection, and a sense of belonging. But that was about to change. It was junior year of high school when things started to turn around for Brittany. She made two new friends, Veronica Bloomberg, a 16-year-old, and Dustin Grant, a 19-year-old, who had this way of making people feel at ease. These two outsiders would become the anchors in Brittany's life, the ones who saw her for who she truly was, not just the quiet girl in the back of the class. The trio quickly became inseparable. They spent hours together, diving into video games, playing all night, and just being there for each other. This friendship filled a void in Brittany's life that she didn't even realize existed. But still, something was missing. Brittany wanted more. Brittany wanted romance. And that is when Thomas Hollier entered the picture. Thomas was everything Brittany had ever dreamed of. He was a football player, popular, the guy every girl at school had a crush on. And Thomas was heartbroken because Thomas had recently broken up with his high school sweetheart, Krista Pike. Krista's family moved away to another town, and the long-distance relationship wasn't working out for Krista and Thomas. When Brittany met Thomas, he was the perfect rebound. He was vulnerable, and he was there for her. Soon, the two become inseparable, and Brittany felt like she had found her Prince Charming. But what Brittany didn't know was that she was the one filling a void in Thomas's life. He wasn't exactly looking for love. He was still hung up on Krista. Even though it didn't seem like it, Thomas was still in love with his ex-girlfriend, Krista. Brittany's whole world changed the day she met Thomas, and soon she introduces Thomas to her two best friends, Veronica and Dustin. Now, the foursome start hanging out all the time. They are inseparable. Brittany is now vibrant. She feels loved. She feels like she's a part of a group. She has her own little clique. This group spent hours together playing video games, talking about life, and just enjoying each other's company. Brittany was in love, and everything felt perfect. But life, as it often does, had a way of throwing in a wrench. 2 months into their relationship, Krista, yes, the very same Krista who had broken Thomas's heart, called him out of the blue and told him she was moving back to Madera. Her parents had split up, and she was coming back to town with her father. Thomas, still reeling from the loss of Krista, had a decision to make, and without hesitation, he chose Krista. I mean, Thomas and Krista only broke up because she moved away. It wasn't like they had fallen out of love. So Thomas breaks up with Brittany right away. No explanation, no closure. He's just gone. Brittany is heartbroken and confused, and she's watching as the boy she thought she would spend her life with ran back into the arms of his first love, Krista. Krista and Thomas were always meant to be. They were that couple in high school that everyone was jealous of. They had the perfect relationship. And now they're back together. And Brittany is not having it. There comes jealousy, there's anger, she feels betrayed. It did not take long for Krista and Thomas to rekindle their romance, and this time it was intense. So intense that Thomas proposed to Krista. And of course, she says yes. Krista moved in with Thomas's family and they started preparing for their wedding. But Brittany was left in the dust. It was like she never mattered. Her world, once so fun and full of light, felt dark and hollow again. Yet through the pain, there was one person who never stopped being there for Brittany, and that was Dustin. Dustin, who had been quietly in love with Brittany all along, became her rock. He was there for her when she cried. He was there when she felt invisible. He became a friend she could lean on, but Brittany couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't over Thomas. She still hoped that maybe, just maybe, they'd find their way back to each other. So now Brittany is doing what Thomas did in the beginning, and she's using Dustin as a rebound just to kind of help her get over Thomas. But she does end up asking Thomas if they can still be friends. And of course, Thomas, thinking everything is just chill with Brittany, because now she's seeing Dustin, Thomas starts hanging out with the group again, and this time he's going to bring Krista along. So as Thomas is leaning more into this friendship with Veronica, Dustin, and Brittany, Krista is becoming a part of the clan. And Brittany starts becoming so close to Krista. Brittany is becoming so close to Krista, her ex-boyfriend's new fiance, that she's even helping Krista go shopping for wedding dresses. Things seem so cool, so chill. Krista has no idea that Brittany still carries a torch for Thomas. Krista's life is going wonderfully. She's living with her fiance. They had separate rooms in Thomas's home because they're still living with Thomas's parents, but they had a shared bathroom. So in the morning, they would leave each other little love notes, or at night, they would leave a little note saying, "What would you like for dinner?" or "I missed you today. Can't wait to see you later." Pretty cute stuff. It is January 14th, 2008. Thomas is leaving for school. Krista has already graduated, so she's going to be staying home for the day. Thomas says goodbye to Krista, tells her he loves her, he will see her later. But that would be the last time Thomas ever saw his fiancée, Krista, alive. Thomas returns home from school on that January day, and he calls his sister hysterical, screaming, crying into the phone, telling his sister to please call the police. Please call 911. Thomas informs his sister Kimberly that he walked into the home and found his fiancée, Krista, on the living room floor, and when he went to touch her, he could tell that she was not alive. He called his sister first. Thomas's father soon gets home, sees Thomas holding Krista and crying. Thomas is hysterical. He is screaming Krista's name and crying. The police pull up to the crime scene and they could hear Thomas from inside the house screaming Krista's name. Police enter the home and the crime scene looked like a horror movie. There is blood on the walls, blood on the floor, blood under Krista's head, pools of blood on a couch a few feet from where Krista was. Police find her on her back, pants cut off, beaten on the back of the head, slash marks on her throat, abdomen, and thigh. The home was searched for forced entry. There was no forced entry, no ransacking, no robbery. Upon first glance at the crime scene, police are wondering, was this a crime of passion? Was this a sexual assault? It looked like Krista was struck from behind while she was sitting on the couch. Upon searching the home, police see that there is a knife block in the kitchen, missing one knife. There is also a weight bench next to where Krista's body was found, and that weight bench had all of the weights lined up perfectly nice in a row, but one weight was missing, one dumbbell, a 5-pound dumbbell. Police are now thinking, was this the murder weapon? Was this used to hit Krista on the back of the head? Police are trying to question Thomas outside in his driveway, but Thomas is just distraught, overcome with emotion. There are tears streaming down his face. He is texting. Now, this is pretty suspicious to the police officers because why are you texting back and forth with someone right now while we're trying to talk to you? He's in the middle of hysterically crying, but he'll look down at his phone and answer some text. Police ask who the texts are from, and Thomas tells them that they're family members trying to communicate with Thomas, trying to see what happened to Krista. Thomas is taken down to the police station. He is interrogated. He does hesitate before telling the police one thing. When asked about any possible enemies Krista might have, Thomas sits there for a moment and thinks, quietly says to the police, Brittany used to hate her. So now the detectives have Brittany on their radar, but they also have Dustin on their radar. Police were searching Thomas's home. They went up to the bedroom. They went into the shared bathroom, and what they find in the shared bathroom was a little note that Krista had left Thomas. The note said, Dustin was here looking for his keys. I'll see you after school. Love, Krista. Detectives are figuring all of this out when they learn that Brittany and Dustin already went to the police station on their own to answer questions about Krista's death. Dustin is the last person known to have seen Krista. Dustin recalled visiting Krista's house that day, noting he had seen her and that she was fine when he left. No signs of distress, no indication anything was wrong. To him, it was a normal visit, but his account made him the last person to have been with her before she vanished. His words only deepened this mystery, and the police turned their attention to people closest to Krista: Thomas, Brittany, Veronica, and Dustin. Detectives now have Brittany in an interrogation room, and Brittany is acting a little caught off guard by all of this questioning. She does admit to having a little jealousy with Krista. She tells the police all about the relationship with Thomas and what happened, but says that her and Krista have since become friends. Brittany was shocked that the police were asking her certain questions, but they had to let her go, and as she's leaving the interrogation room, she turns around and asks one last question before walking out the door. She says, was she raped? This question was jarring, almost as if it had just slipped out without her realizing the weight of that question. It was definitely a red flag for detectives, one that they couldn't ignore. But still, with no physical evidence to tie anyone to the crime, they were just left grasping for any leads. But right when they feel like this case might go cold, a witness comes forward. A high school friend revealed something that changed the entire course of the investigation. This witness recalled seeing Brittany and Dustin together after school, driving to a store called Game Time. The real breakthrough came when the witness heard Dustin approach the car and casually say, "It's done." That phrase alone was enough to send a chill through the detectives, but they needed more. They needed proof. A deeper investigation revealed that Dustin's family owned a movie theater, and it wasn't long before the police speculated that he might have disposed of evidence in one of their dumpsters at the movie theater. Sure enough, when they searched the area, they found a pair of blue jeans stained with blood inside one of the dumpsters. Surveillance footage from a nearby camera confirmed Dustin had been the one to dispose of the clothes. The discovery made him the prime suspect, and the police quickly moved to arrest him. When they confronted him, Dustin showed no emotion. A chilling response to the gravity of this situation. His family immediately hired an attorney to ensure Dustin wouldn't speak. As the case developed, the question remained, what was the motive? Why would Dustin, someone who was supposedly just an acquaintance of Krista, be involved in something so horrific? With Dustin in custody, the investigation is far from over. The detectives still needed to unravel the complex web of jealousy, betrayal, and lies that entangled Krista's relationships with these 4 people. Luckily for police, another high school friend comes forward, says that they were witness to Brittany making a specific threat about wanting to cut Krista's throat. Then, Veronica Bloomberg, the best friend of Brittany and Dustin, comes to the police station with her mother. She tells police that she is upset. She wants to talk to them because she believes that her friend Dustin killed Krista because Brittany asked him to. So detectives tell Veronica, hey, we're going to have you call Brittany right now. We're going to record this call and you're going to try to get Brittany to implicate herself in all of this. Veronica calls Brittany and Veronica asks Brittany, what did you tell the police? And Brittany says, basically, I just lied to them. Okay, so this is enough. Police are going to bring Brittany back in. They interrogate her, and Brittany points the finger at Dustin and Veronica. Brittany tells police that Brittany, Dustin, and Veronica were hanging out one night. Brittany says she fell asleep on the floor, and when she woke up, she could hear Veronica and Dustin forming a plan to kill Krista. She heard them talking about this plan because Veronica, allegedly, said that she wished that she could kill someone. And maybe they can start with Krista because that would make Brittany feel better, and then Brittany could get Thomas back. So Brittany's blaming Veronica for this crazy plan when Brittany's the one who has all the jealous rage. I mean, that story doesn't make any sense. Anyone could tell that's a clear lie. Brittany has motive. Brittany is the jealous ex. Brittany wants Thomas back. Brittany and Dustin are both arrested. The day they are arrested marked the beginning of a long, painful journey for everyone involved. With the evidence mounting against them, the first trial to take place was Dustin's. The prosecution argued that he was the key player in the murder of Krista, but there was one issue. The weapons used to kill Krista were never found. Without that critical piece of evidence, the defense was quick to point out that there was no definitive proof tying Dustin to the murder itself. Dustin, in his defense, claimed it wasn't him who killed Krista, but another boy who had been involved. Despite his claims, the physical evidence was damning. The blood-stained jeans found in the movie theater dumpster, along with surveillance footage of Dustin disposing of the clothes, were enough to convince the jury, in the end, Dustin Gran was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. As Dustin's trial came to an end, all eyes turned to Brittany. She had been sitting in jail, waiting for her day in court, and as the investigation and media frenzy intensified, she began to blame others. Brittany's defense pointed fingers at Veronica, claiming that Veronica had developed a twisted fantasy and wanted to make Krista the first victim in a sick killing game. According to Brittany, it was Veronica's idea, and she was simply swept up in it. But as the case continued to unfold, it became increasingly clear that the truth was so much more complicated. the trial was delayed for months as the defense team requested a change of venue, citing the intense media coverage in Madera County. They argued that the bias in the community made it impossible for Brittany to receive a fair trial. In the end, her case was moved to Stanislaus County, about an hour away in Modesto, where the trial would proceed without the overwhelming media presence. This shift in location gave Brittany a glimmer of hope, but it didn't change the mounting evidence against her. By the time the trial began in September 2014, Brittany had spent a staggering 8 years in jail with absolutely no support from friends or family. The years had been long, isolating, and full of media attention, and now she had to face the consequences of her actions. The prosecution's case was clear. Brittany was the mastermind behind Krista's murder. Brittany was driven by jealousy and rage. She wasn't just an accomplice. She had been the puppeteer pulling the strings and manipulating everyone around her. But Brittany's defense tried to paint a different picture, arguing that she had been manipulated by both Dustin and Veronica. Veronica was the key witness in Brittany's trial. Veronica, the star witness, was given immunity to testify against Brittany. The defense claimed that Brittany was just a pawn in a game she never fully understood. But the prosecution wasn't convinced, and they laid out a compelling argument that Brittany's motive was simple: obsession. Brittany was obsessed with Thomas, and over time, that obsession turned into hatred for Krista, who Brittany saw as standing in the way of getting her man back. The prosecution argued that Brittany used Dustin as a means to an end, and Dustin, who was equally obsessed with her, was manipulated into carrying out this murder. The prosecution's theory was chilling in its simplicity. They claimed that Brittany had orchestrated the entire murder. Dustin had gone to Krista's house under the guise of looking for his keys. When he arrived, Krista let him in. Unaware of his true intentions, Dustin initially tried to kill Krista from behind the couch, but he panicked and he couldn't go through with it. He left the house, and Krista, confused but unaware of danger, wrote the note on the bathroom wall for Thomas to see. Dustin then went to the game store called Game Time, where he texted Brittany. Surveillance footage from the store confirmed that Dustin was there. The texts between Brittany and Dustin were the key to this investigation. Dustin messaged Brittany, "I can't do it." And Brittany's response was simply, "Do it." All capital letters. The prosecution argued that this was the moment when Brittany took full control. She didn't just want Krista out of the picture. She wanted her dead, and she was willing to manipulate Dustin into carrying out the crime. As the trial continued, it became clear that Brittany was not as innocent as she tried to claim. Her obsession with Thomas, her jealousy of Krista, and her ability to manipulate those around her painted a dark picture of a young woman willing to do anything to get what she wanted. The defense's claim that she was simply a pawn in a larger game, that fell on deaf ears. The prosecution's case was strong, and it was clear that Brittany played a pivotal role in orchestrating Krista's tragic death. With the trial dragging on, one thing was certain: the truth was slowly coming to light. Whether Brittany was the mastermind or simply a manipulative participant, her actions had set a deadly chain of events into motion. When Veronica testifies against Brittany, Veronica tells the courtroom that she saw the text between Dustin and Brittany. She saw essentially a discussion on how the murder would occur. Brittany gave instructions to Dustin. The instructions were poison, strangulation, kill her, rape her, whatever you need to do, just kill her. Then Dustin texted a picture of Krista's body to Brittany, and Brittany wrote back, "Nice." I mean, Veronica's testimony is damning. But the defense is like, no, she's lying. Veronica is lying. That's their comeback. That's all they could say. The defense says that if it wasn't for Veronica, this would have never happened. Okay, now listen to this theory. Veronica is the mastermind hitman. She will devise this plan, but after that, she wants to be the one that's the killer from now on. So the defense's theory is that Veronica wanted to create a killing game, but she wants Brittany and Dustin to kill first. And then from there on, Veronica's always going to be the killer. It doesn't make sense. And that is why the jury only took 1 hour to come back with the verdict of Brittany Navarra being found guilty on all counts: first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder. 8 years after the murder of Krista Pike, Brittany is finally found guilty. Brittany had no reaction. She was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. She will die in prison. During sentencing, the judge looked right into Brittany's face and she said, Krista's only mistake was to fall in love with a boy who had already captured the dark heart of Brittany Navarra. According to an ABC30.com article, Russell Pike, Krista's father, has tried his best to move on, but sometimes living in the past is easier because that's where his memories are of his 18-year-old daughter, Krista Ray Pike. Russell Pike says, I miss her laugh, her smile, and her marshmallow cheeks, and most of all, her hugs. Krista Pike was beaten with a dumbbell and slashed with a knife, all because she befriended the wrong people. Superior Court Judge Maria Silveira stated, part of what makes this so extraordinary and troubling is that Krista befriended Brittany and Dustin, and they betrayed her friendship by brutally murdering her. A love triangle, something so common, yet so dangerous when jealousy and obsession take control. Krista's fiancé, Thomas, gave a gut-wrenching testimony about the murder of his fiancée, Krista Pike. Cameras were not allowed in the courtroom, but he described coming home from high school to find his girlfriend, his fiancé's nearly naked body on the floor of their home. Krista's life was taken in a moment of jealousy, manipulation, and betrayal. Krista simply loved a boy who was already tangled in the grip of Brittany Navarra. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Residue. You know that I do appreciate you all so very much. Residue is created, hosted, produced, edited, researched by Chrissy Champagne. That is me. It would be super cool if you could hit that follow button at the top of your screen, follow Residue, so you can meet me back here every Tuesday at midnight. It would also be cool if you could follow me on Instagram at Residue Podcast, Facebook, Residue, a true crime podcast, TikTok, Residue Podcast, and I don't know, like leaving a 5-star review is kind of cool. That would totally make my day. I did want to give a huge shout out. There is this new app called Podbeat, Podbeat. This is an award-winning app used for workouts. Like, let's say you're listening to me today and you're trying to work out, but you want a little more of a beat behind you. Podbeat does this for you. I would love if you guys could check them out. They are also on Instagram and TikTok at Podbeat. You could make me feel like Janet Jackson. You could give me a beat. Okay, guys, you know what I'm going to say. Stay safe and stay